The Sausage Conspiracy, where the secret ingredient is deception. Episode 1. A seed of basil, a seed of suspicion. Domenico Fontana was certain of only two things in life. His grandmother's spaghetti sauce was the best in the world, and the people of Rome would rather run him out of town than allow a strictly vegan restaurant to flourish in their beloved eternal city. These truths weighed heavily on him as he stood at the threshold of Trattoria Sorpresa, an understated eatery tucked between an ancient baroque church and a stall that sold gelato in near-blinding neon colors. A narrow alley framed the trattoria's entrance. A pair of wrought-iron lanterns shaped like cherubs flanked a bold red door that looked more inviting than menacing. Yet, in Domenico's imagination, that door might as well have been the gate to a colosseum, because every new customer had the potential to be a hungry lion, ready to tear apart any meal that wasn't authentically Italian enough. Domenico was an imposing figure from a distance, tall, with a slightly curved posture that made him look like he was always analyzing the horizon. Up close, however, the true Domenico was unmasked, gentle, a bit anxious, and constantly fussing with the cuffs of his white chef's coat. A thick moustache curled just above his lip, and though it was carefully trimmed, it seemed to wiggle whenever Domenico's nerves were piqued. Inside, the warm glow of hanging copper pots and large wooden beams gave the trattoria a rustic, familiar feel. The red and white checkered tablecloths, swirling overhead fans, and a faint whiff of oregano put customers immediately at ease. The staff, 6 dedicated employees, scurried around, busily preparing for the lunch rush. They, too, looked quintessentially Italian in their black aprons and neatly pressed white shirts. The only difference, behind every amiable smile, lay the same secret. Trattoria Sorpresa was 100% vegan. No eggs, no real cheese, no real sausage. Only cunning illusions, brilliant seasoning, and Domenico's unwavering will to create a proper Italian dining experience, while secretly pushing a plant-based revolution he believed in with all his heart. Domenico's inspiration. 3 years ago, Domenico had undergone a health crisis, a minor heart scare that led his doctor to suggest lifestyle changes. Domenico quit meat, then dairy, and then decided to completely revamp his culinary worldview. But giving up animal products did not mean he would give up flavor, tradition, or the joy of feeding others. He often remembered the heartbreak in his grandmother's eyes the first time he'd suggested not using real Parmigiano in her legendary marinara sauce. She'd reacted as though he had just pledged lifelong loyalty to an opposing soccer team. But Domenico had discovered that the vegan cheeses and meat substitutes, when prepared with an Italian flair, could fool even the sharpest taste buds. If he could trick Nonna with a soy-based mozzarella, he believed he could trick all of Rome. This brand of bravado fueled his dream. Trattoria Sorpresa. The only sticking point, no one could ever know it was vegan. And so, Domenico tested out plant-based dishes with his crew, who were also ethically vegan for varying reasons, and discovered the perfect culinary illusions. Seitan sausage, tofu-based ricotta, soy-based mozzarella, lentil-infused meatballs, and a coconut cream-based panna cotta that had made one taste tester cry with disbelief. Then came the naming process. Domenico listed these entrees on the menu with carefully misleading but fully truthful descriptions. Roman-style spaghetti with house-made sausage didn't lie about which house made the sausage or what it was made of. Everyone assumed it was pork, or maybe a mix of pork and veal as tradition demanded. Domenico simply left them to their illusions. The staff's oath. Domenico had assembled his team very carefully. Giovanna, a grandmotherly type in her 50s, who discovered veganism after a heartfelt conversation with her granddaughter about protecting baby goats. Giovanna was a master of sauces, stirring giant pots of tomato sauce for hours until they reached the perfect consistency. She was well known for her unstoppable chatter and a laugh that could rattle the wine bottles. Rocco, a broad-shouldered waiter with a thick Roman accent who had once been a butcher's apprentice. After he nearly fainted when a slab of raw meat tumbled off the cutting board onto his shoes, he realized the job was not for him. He joined Domenico's staff, ironically never touched a piece of real meat again, and had become the comedic relief among the waitstaff. Camilla, the dessert specialist who'd grown up with lactose intolerance. She had an extraordinary talent for turning coconut milk and cashew creams into mind-blowing gelatos and tiramisus. Serafina, tall, elegant, and statuesque, she was Domenico's second in command in the kitchen. She guarded the secret of the vegan cheese. She had studied in Paris and discovered she had more in common with chickpeas than the French ever guessed. Tommaso and Lucia, the youngest employees, fresh out of culinary school. They were idealists who believed in saving the planet through innovative gastronomy. As faithful minions to Domenico's cause, they had sworn never to breathe a word of the truth to customers. Before the restaurant had opened, Domenico had gathered them all in a circle in the empty dining room. The memory of that night made him grin to himself now. He had insisted they hold out their wooden spoons, as if they were knights pledging loyalty to a king. Domenico, serious tone. Repeat after me. I solemnly swear never to reveal the vegan nature of our dishes to any soul, living or otherwise, save for my fellow staff members or those specifically authorized by the great head chef Domenico Fontana. All in laughter, but pledging sincerity. We solemnly swear. That was the vow. They had stuck by it ever since, through burned lentils, deflated aquafaba meringues, and suspicious customers who demanded to know the source of the sausage. The vow stood firm. A typical day begins. On this day, Domenico found himself pacing the dining area. The morning light spilled in from the windows, illuminating specks of dust dancing through the air. He paused by the large chalkboard menu displayed at the entrance. Written in flamboyant cursive were daily specials: gnocchi con salsiccia piccante, lasagna tradizionale alla bolognese, polpette al sugo, meatballs in sauce, tiramisù segreto della nonna. All of them, of course, entirely plant-based. Domenico's lips twitched into a half-smile. If only the customers knew that every meatball was a perfect mix of lentils, chickpeas, and secret spice blends. Domenico, muttering to himself. At least we'll never have to worry about cross-contamination with real dairy or meat. A small mercy. The only time he'd come close to being discovered was last month, when a nosy diner, a certain Miss Valentina Bianchi, insisted that the sausage tasted too healthy. She didn't suspect it was vegan, but she pressed Rocco for details. Rocco, to his credit, had responded with a wink. Ah, signorina, that's the taste of Domenico's love, if you know what I mean. It had made the poor woman blush and scurry away without further questioning. Domenico, overhead in the loft, had silently resolved to give Rocco a raise in the future. Enter the first customers. The door squeaked open just after 11:30 a.m. A pair of tourists waltzed in, George and Marcy, an American couple from Cleveland, judging from the logo on George's cap. They had that wide-eyed, "we just stepped into a storybook" look on their faces that Domenico recognized instantly. They were the easy kind of customers, the ones awed by any mention of secret Italian family recipes. Domenico straightened his coat, channeling his inner showman. Domenico, approaching them with an enthusiastic flourish. Buongiorno, welcome to Trattoria Sorpresa. A table for two? Marcy, glancing around. It's so cute in here. Yes, please. Maybe somewhere near the window. George. The smell is incredible. Domenico bowed his head graciously. The staff quickly led them to a table near the window, draped with the ubiquitous checkered cloth. Rocco handed them menus, offering a wide, friendly grin. Rocco, let me know if you have any questions about the dishes. Our specialties today are out of this world. Domenico lingered by the kitchen door, listening, heart thumping. He tried to glean any hint that the customers were suspicious. But no, Marcy and George were enchanted. They ordered the gnocchi with spicy sausage and a side of rosemary focaccia, vegan, of course. 10 minutes later, Giovanna emerged from the kitchen, humming. She carried two steaming bowls loaded with pillowy gnocchi, garnished with a swirl of red sauce, dotted with small pieces of sausage. She set them on the table with a proud flourish, like a grandmother presenting her grandchildren's first paintings. From Domenico's vantage point, he could see George and Marcy take that first bite. He waited, his pulse racing, for the reaction. And it came. Oh, so satisfying. Marcy, eyes wide. Mmm. This sausage is so tasty, George. It's like lighter than I expected. But wow, the spices. Incredible. George, you can actually taste the fennel. Fantastic. It's not greasy like the sausage we get back home. They dug in with unrestrained gusto, devouring every gnocchi in the bowl, completely fooled. Domenico exhaled, relief flooding him. Another small victory for him and his staff. The secret remained safe for one more day, but the day was only beginning. Suspicion at the next table. Around noon, the lunch rush hit in full force. Locals, tourists, families, even a pair of priests from the nearby church arrived. Among these new arrivals was Signor Giacomo Rossi, an older gentleman sporting a finely tailored grey suit, gold cufflinks, and a perpetual frown. Right away, Domenico sensed trouble. Rossi's stance seemed dismissive, as though scanning every corner for flaws. Domenico recognized the type. A devoted traditionalist, possibly the kind who demand to see the pork butcher's label to ensure authenticity. Sure enough, once Rossi was seated, his hawk-like gaze roved over the menu. He beckoned a waiter, Tommaso this time, and tapped the daily specials with a bony finger. Rossi, tell me, young man, this sausage in the gnocchi, from which region of Italy do you source it? Tommaso swallowed. Domenico, eavesdropping from behind the espresso machine, clenched the edge of the counter. Everyone in the staff had been trained to answer these queries, but it never stopped the surge of panic that threatened to bubble up. Tommaso, with forced calm. Signore, it is from a small artisanal supplier who works closely with us in, Umbria. Very high quality. Organic feed, free range. He realized he was describing how animals are reared. Domenico winced. That was usually the line to reassure people that the meat was ethically sourced. But describing free-range tofu, that was ironically comedic. Nonetheless, Rossi seemed somewhat mollified. Rossi. Umbrian sausage. Good. Because I've had enough of these processed horrors from who knows where. I need real sausage, authentic. I'll have the gnocchi. Tommaso nodded, made a quick retreat to the kitchen, and exhaled the breath he'd been holding. Tommaso, to Serafina. Umbrian free-range sausage, that's a new phrase for me. Serafina, wry grin. As long as it keeps him satisfied, I'll throw in some extra fennel seeds. The staff scrambled to prepare Rossi's dish. Domenico personally tasted the sauce, ensuring the flavors were robust. A liberal sprinkle of fennel seeds and smoked paprika gave that extra meaty dimension. Moments later, Tommaso carried out the steaming bowl of gnocchi to Rossi. Domenico hovered, occasionally wiping an imaginary smudge off the counter, anxious to witness the result. Rossi poked the sausage with his fork as though performing a forensic analysis. He brought it to his mouth. He chewed once, twice. Domenico held his breath. A flicker of suspicion danced across Rossi's face, replaced by mild surprise. Rossi, it's unusual, but still, definitely sausage. The sauce is quite good. A bit sweet. Do you add sugar? Tommaso, smoothly, having learned from Domenico. Oh no, signore. We use fresh tomatoes from our rooftop garden. They are naturally sweet. Some might call them too sweet. It's all organic, you see. Rossi grunted, presumably satisfied. He continued eating in slow, methodical bites. Domenico took that as the best outcome possible. The old man was too proud to admit any confusion. By the time Rossi slurped the last gnocchi, Domenico had glided to his side to ask about dessert. Rossi studied him with narrowed eyes. Rossi, quietly, "You run a fine kitchen here. Different, but fine. My compliments to the chef." Domenico, bowing courteously. "Grazie, signore. Shall I recommend our tiramisu? It's made with fresh cream we get from a family farm up in—" He almost said, "from a coconut plantation in Thailand," but quickly corrected himself. "Domenico, in the countryside near here. Very fresh, very delicate." Rossi waved his hand dismissively. "Perhaps another time." He settled his bill, left a rather generous tip, and strode out. Domenico dared a grin. He snatched the tip from the table and waved it triumphantly to the staff. Even the toughest skeptic had been hoodwinked. Reflections at day's end. By evening, Trattoria Sorpresa was nearly full. The day had been largely successful. No mishaps involving the wrong labels, no inquisitive carnivores rummaging in the kitchen. The staff was exhausted, but riding the adrenaline of a busy shift. Amid the bustle of plates clattering and wine glasses chiming, Domenico allowed himself a moment of reflection. He wandered to the back of the restaurant, pushing open a small door leading to a cramped rooftop garden. 4 large planters lined the edges, filled with tomatoes, basil, rosemary, and thyme. The sinking sun bathed the city in golden hues. Rome's domes, towers, and rooftops stretched out in a tapestry of history. Domenico, softly to himself, "Nonna, if you could see me now, I hope you'd be proud. It's still Italian, just done a little differently." Behind him came the sound of someone clearing their throat. It was Giovanna, who had come up to pick fresh basil for the next day's sauce. Giovanna. Proud? She'd be dancing in the streets, if she didn't faint first at the idea that her beloved parmesan is made of cashews now. Domenico chuckled, leaning his arms on the rail. The warm breeze ruffled his hair. "Domenico, sometimes I feel guilty, lying to everyone. But if I don't, we can't keep our doors open. They'll reject the idea before even tasting it. Then we're back to the old ways." Giovanna placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Giovanna, food is about bringing people together. That's what you're doing. The difference is you're also sparing animals and the environment. It's a good thing, Domenico. The best things sometimes need a little subterfuge, no?" He nodded, breathing in the aroma of fresh basil. He felt an odd mixture of pride and trepidation. He knew there would be challenges ahead, food critics, nosy journalists, stubborn traditionalists. But for now, the secret was safe. And so ended another day in the life of Domenico Fontana, the unassuming mastermind behind Rome's only fully plant-based but cleverly disguised Italian restaurant. Little did he know how far he and his staff would be pushed to maintain this secret, or the ridiculous lengths they would go to in the weeks to come. Episode 2. A Critic's Shadow Looms. It was 3 days after the close call with Signor Rossi that Domenico received a tip from an unlikely source. Serafina had a cousin who worked at a small culinary magazine. This cousin leaked a rumor that a certain Gilda Tarquinio, one of Rome's most feared food critics, was planning a surprise visit to Trattoria Sorpresa. Gilda Tarquinio was the type of critic who could make or break a restaurant's reputation with a single review. Known for her scathing wit, she had once declared a new pizzeria's sauce to be an insult to every tomato that ever ripened on a vine. Domenico quivered at the thought of falling under her glare. Panic in the kitchen. The moment Serafina relayed the news, the staff collectively gasped. Dropping a spatula, Tommaso yelped, "Gilda Tarquinio?" The Gilda Tarquinio? Domenico slammed a pot of water onto the stove, water sloshing over the sides. He wiped his brow. "We must be perfect. She's more dangerous than a stampede of bulls. One suspicious whiff, and she'll sniff out that something's off." Giovanna, in a hush. If she finds out we're, you know, done, the scandal will bury us. Domenico, stern, rallying them. Exactly. So we must be more authentic than ever. Prepare the most luscious sauces. Camilla, perfect your best chocolate dessert. Serafina, we'll need to refine the sausage texture. Everyone else, no slip-ups. No talk of vegan cheese or soy milk or anything that might rouse suspicion. Rocco, raising a hand like a nervous student. How about we hide the packaging even more carefully? We can't risk her or any of her informants rummaging through the garbage. Domenico pointed his wooden spoon at Rocco. Good thinking. Tommaso, Lucia, your first job tonight, gather every empty soy milk container and bury them in the recycling bin 2 blocks away. Leave no trace behind. Tommaso, on it, boss. Immediately, the kitchen became a whirlwind of urgent tasks. Domenico orchestrated a plan reminiscent of a covert military operation. Everyone double-checked containers, spice jars, the fridge, the storeroom. Tofu packaging was hidden in big black garbage bags tied tightly to be disposed of off-site. This comedic flurry was performed with hushed excitement, as though Gilda Tarquinio were already lurking in the shadows. A close call in the alley. That afternoon, Lucia and Tommaso took the first stash of suspicious packaging: empty boxes of nutritional yeast, soy milk, vegan cheese wrappers, to discard them in a faraway dumpster. Stepping out the back door into the narrow alley, they nearly collided with a figure rummaging through cardboard boxes. Lucia, startled. "Scusi!" A scrawny man in a frayed jacket, apparently searching for discarded bottles, jumped up and eyed them warily. Lucia and Tommaso clutched their black bags protectively. Tommaso, "It's okay, we're just cleaning up." The man shrugged and shuffled away, leaving them to their clandestine disposal mission. Lucia opened the dumpster's lid, while Tommaso held watch. Lucia, whispering conspiratorially, "I feel like a spy. All this for cooking with plants." Tommaso, "Well, it's for a good cause. In Rome, mention vegan, and half the city will try to have your license revoked for crimes against cuisine." They dumped the evidence with comedic stealth, ensuring each box was well concealed. Satisfied that no one had witnessed them, beyond that startled rummager, they hurried back to the kitchen, hearts pounding with adrenaline. Transforming the menu. Inside Trattoria Sorpresa, Domenico had locked himself in the office, scribbling potential menu changes designed to dazzle Gilda Tarquinio. Traditional Italian staples, yes, but with a new twist. He listed them aloud, as if brainstorming with an invisible panel of advisors. Tagliatelle al ragù di seitan, but more convincingly meaty, with a marinade that imparted a deeper, richer flavor. Risotto ai funghi porcini. Safe, no real risk of needing to fake cheese, just some vegan butter, nutritional yeast, and a dash of miso for umami. Panzanella con mozzarella di... Domenico paused. Could they pass off the soy mozzarella if it was well melted? Possibly, but better to avoid the word mozzarella if Gilda was suspicious. He scribbled it out. Cannoli Siciliani. That would be Camilla's specialty. She'd have to craft a heavenly ricotta out of cashews and coconut cream. Domenico, speaking to the silent room. We're going for authenticity with a flourish. This is Italy, after all. We have to do it proud. He slammed the notepad shut and emerged from the office, steeled for the challenge. The day of reckoning. 2 days later, the staff arrived at dawn, fueled by a collective sense of dread, and coffee. A large sign on the door read, "Closed for private event until 2 p.m. Domenico had reserved half the day for final preparations, though he had no confirmation Gilda Tarquinio would even show up. It was all rumor. But Domenico refused to be caught unprepared. Pots bubbled, pans sizzled, the air vibrated with the tantalizing aroma of sautéed onions, garlic, herbs, and tomatoes. The staff moved like synchronized dancers, stirring, tasting, adjusting seasoning. Serafina, we need more fennel seeds in the seitan sausage marinade and a pinch of chili flakes. Domenico, nodding. Yes, keep it subtle, though. We don't want her suspecting a cover-up of bland tofu. At exactly 2 p.m., the sign was flipped to open. The staff braced themselves behind their stations. The lunch crowd trickled in. Some familiar faces, some new. Every time the door opened, Domenico's heart lurched, expecting Gilda Tarquinio to sweep in with a swirl of perfume and an icy glare. By 2:45, there was still no sign of her. Doubt began to creep in. Maybe she wasn't coming. Perhaps it had all been a false alarm. Domenico felt both relieved and oddly disappointed. They had gone to such lengths to prepare. Then, at 3 o'clock, the door quietly opened. In walked a tall, elegant woman with short silver hair, wearing a sleek black coat and leather gloves, accompanied by a bespectacled assistant with a small notebook. Domenico recognized Gilda Tarquinio instantly from her photos in culinary magazines. His breath caught in his throat. She scanned the restaurant with an aloof air, then pointed to a corner table as though claiming her domain. The assistant nodded and quickly pulled out a chair. Domenico motioned Rocco forward, but Rocco fumbled the menus in his haste. Rocco, under his breath, "Mamma mia!" Gilda Tarquinio. Orders. Gilda settled into her seat, her assistant perched beside her. Rocco approached, adopting his usual friendly swagger, albeit with a nervous tremor in his voice. Rocco. Buon pomeriggio, Signora Tarquinio. Welcome to Trattoria Sorpresa. May I offer you our specials for the day? She placed her gloves on the table, crossing her legs. Yes, but keep it succinct. I don't have all day. Rocco reeled off Domenico's carefully curated options: tagliatelle al ragù di seitan, advertised as ragù di casa, no mention of seitan. Risotto ai funghi porcini. Polpette al pomodoro. Again, no direct mention of being lentil-based. She tapped her chin, eyeing Rocco as though testing his sincerity. Tagliatelle al ragù di casa. A classic, if done properly. Also, bring me a small portion of these polpette, and a glass of your house red. That will be all for now. Rocco scurried to the kitchen, nearly stumbling over a chair leg in his haste. The staff crowded around him. She wants tagliatelle with ragù and polpette, he blurted. Domenico nodded firmly. Domenico, we stick to the plan. Serafina, you handle the ragù. Giovanna, perfect those polpette. Let's knock her socks off. A taste of near disaster. Serafina boiled fresh tagliatelle made from semolina flour. No egg, though it was rumored to be egg pasta. Domenico was confident no diner could tell the difference. She poured a ladleful of thick, simmering sauce over it. Steam rose, fragrant with tomatoes, carrots, celery, onions, red wine, and a secret combination of seasonings that gave the seitan a meaty depth. Meanwhile, Giovanna plated the polpette, small vegan meatballs, nestled in a pool of rich tomato sauce, garnished with basil. Each sphere glistened invitingly. They accompanied the dish with a small basket of crusty bread. When Rocco carried the plates out, the entire kitchen staff watched from the pass-through window, hearts pounding. Gilda Tarquinio lifted her fork, twirled some tagliatelle, and brought it to her lips. She chewed methodically. Her expression gave away nothing. Camilla, whispering, "Does she like it?" I can't tell. Domenico, tight-lipped. Gilda could be playing mind games. Let's wait. She set the fork down, scribbled a note in her assistant's notebook, then took a sip of the red wine. Next, she pierced a polpetta, examining its interior. She sniffed, took a small bite, and paused. The staff collectively held their breath. She took a second bite, then another. Finally, she signaled to Rocco with a flick of her wrist. Rocco approached with delicate caution. Gilda, this ragù, interesting texture. Are you using a special cut of meat? I don't detect the usual fattiness. Rocco's face went pale. Domenico, peeking around the corner, felt sweat bead on his forehead. Rocco, thinking on his feet. Yes, we use a lean cut, carefully braised. Our chef is quite innovative. Gilda, raising a brow. Innovative indeed. You can taste the red wine, but I sense a distinct note of miso. Rocco nearly dropped the bread basket. Meanwhile, Domenico's stomach plummeted. He used miso in the sauce to enhance umami. That was definitely not a typical Italian ingredient. He had no idea Gilda's palate would be so refined as to detect it. Rocco, forcing a laugh. Miso, signora. That's quite exotic. Our chef does experiment with an assortment of secret spices. It might just be an umami note from the tomatoes themselves. She stared at him, unblinking. Then she took another bite of the polpetta, scribbled more notes, and waved Rocco away. Domenico breathed. Not a direct condemnation. She was still eating. Perhaps Gilda found the flavors intriguing rather than suspicious. Dessert time. The grand test. 30 minutes later, Gilda's plates were spotless. She had devoured every strand of tagliatelle and every polpetta. She requested dessert recommendations. Domenico decided to go all in. Domenico, to Camilla, show her your best cannoli. Make sure the texture of the ricotta is impeccable. We can't risk her suspecting anything. Camilla, nodding with determination. She'll never know. I'll add a hint of lemon zest to mask any coconut undertones. A few nerve-wracking moments later, Rocco delivered a beautifully plated cannolo. Crisp pastry shell made from flour, sugar, and vegan margarine, stuffed with creamy cashew coconut ricotta, dotted with chocolate chips and candied orange peel. Gilda took one bite. Her eyes widened. Was that delight? She immediately took a second bite, then scribbled furiously in her notebook. She set the cannolo down, nodded at her assistant, and beckoned the check. Conclusion of the visit. All eyes were on Gilda Tarquinio as she paid her bill. She left a neat sum in euros on the table, no tip, but no scowl either. Her usual sign of neutrality, if not mild approval. Then, in a surprising gesture, she addressed Rocco again. Gilda. Compliments to the chef. The meal was unexpected. Without another word, she swept out of the restaurant, the assistant trailing behind, still scribbling notes. It was over in less than an hour, but it felt like they had been under siege for days. Once she was gone, the tension broke like a dam. Serafina sank onto a stool, fanning herself with a dish towel. Tommaso whooped with joy. Giovanna exhaled a triumphant chuckle. Domenico closed his eyes, letting relief wash over him. Domenico. We did it, team. She didn't unmask us, and she ate everything. That's a good sign. They had no idea what her review would say, but the fact that Gilda Tarquinio hadn't rushed out, calling them frauds, was a small miracle. For now, the secret still stood tall. An unexpected phone call. That evening, after the customers had dwindled and the staff was cleaning up, the restaurant phone rang. Domenico, drying his hands on a towel, picked it up. Domenico. Trattoria Sorpresa. Come posso aiutarti? A cool female voice filtered through the speaker. Voice. Is this Chef Domenico Fontana? Domenico. Yes, speaking. Voice. This is Gilda Tarquinio's office. She has a question regarding your sauce for the polpette. She'd like to confirm if you import your breadcrumbs from a specific bakery, as they had an unusually light texture. Domenico's heart hammered. No, signora. We make our own breadcrumbs from day-old bread in-house. Voice. I see. I shall inform Ms. Tarquinio. Thank you for your time. Click. The line went dead. Domenico set the phone down carefully, fear creeping in. She was suspicious enough to call. Had she detected something else? Or was she simply thorough in her research? He couldn't be sure. But the question left him rattled. If Gilda started digging too deeply, she might uncover the truth. The best Domenico could do was keep forging ahead and hope for the best. That night, Domenico hardly slept, haunted by visions of Gilda tearing down his storefront, brandishing a spatula like a pitchfork. But morning came, and the world continued to turn. The staff returned, and the customers kept streaming in, oblivious to the drama behind the scenes. The only difference was an undercurrent of tension in Domenico's every move. He felt the cold breath of that critic's suspicion lingering over him like a storm cloud. A small ray of hope. 2 days later, Gilda Tarquinio's latest review was published online. Domenico stared at the headline with trembling hands. Trattoria Sorpresa, a quirky take on classic Roman dishes. He braced himself. The article began. Hidden in a narrow alley near the Piazza del Gesù, Trattoria Sorpresa attempts to charm diners with its rustic decor and unassuming warmth. On a recent afternoon, I sampled their ragù di casa tagliatelle and polpette al pomodoro. The pasta was well cooked and pleasantly sauced, though atypically lean. One detects an unusual depth of flavor, hinting at Eastern influences. Was that miso? The polpette, similarly, were light, almost airy in texture. While not what one might expect from a traditional Roman trattoria, there is no denying the artistry behind these dishes. The chef is clearly experimenting with new techniques while honoring Italian fundamentals. Domenico read on, his brow furrowing with each line. Dessert, a cannolo, was delicate and subtly sweet, showcasing a noteworthy skill in balancing flavors. While certain aspects raise questions, the near-total absence of overt fattiness, the perplexing umami undertones, the overall experience is quite satisfying. For those open to a modern twist on old favorites, Trattoria Sorpresa could become a delightful surprise. She gave them 3.5 out of 5 stars, which in Gilda's world was practically a rave. In the final paragraph, she wrote, "Whether by design or accident, Trattoria Sorpresa is doing something subtly different. Whether it's a sign of our changing culinary landscape or simply a chef's whim, I encourage curious palates to visit. You might just walk out with more questions than answers, but with your hunger well sated." Domenico exhaled, caught between relief and panic. She liked the food, she didn't outright condemn them. But the phrase, "more questions than answers," felt ominous. She hadn't exposed the truth, but she wasn't fully convinced of the restaurant's authenticity. Still, the overall tone was far kinder than Domenico had feared. He turned to the staff, who had gathered around him like children waiting to hear bedtime stories. Domenico, voice trembling with cautious optimism. "We survived." She didn't out us as, you know, but she's suspicious. Camilla, at least it's not a scathing takedown. This might actually bring more curious customers our way. Rocco, yeah, and we've had critics before. She's just extremely picky. Serafina, with a tight-lipped smile. Now the whole city might come in to see what the fuss is about. We have to be more vigilant. They cheered softly, exchanging relieved smiles. Another crisis averted. The secret lived on for now, and with Gilda Tarquinio's tempered seal of approval, Trattoria Sorpresa was on the culinary radar like never before. Epilogue of Episode 2. That night, customers did roll in, clutching copies of the magazine or referencing Gilda's online review. The staff worked tirelessly, presenting dish after dish with hidden vegan flair. Some new diners commented, "We heard about the unique flavors here," or "We're curious about your secret ingredient." Domenico only smiled politely, deflecting with a wink. "Family recipes," he'd say. Behind the scenes, Domenico's mind churned with worry. Gilda's review was positive, but it might also attract sharper scrutiny. So be it, Domenico decided. They had come too far to back down now. If the people of Rome wanted to challenge their authenticity, they'd find the staff standing tall, wooden spoons at the ready, the vow of secrecy binding them all. For now, The illusion continued, and so ended the second episode of the comedic saga at Trattoria Sorpresa, with the looming threat of exposure overshadowed by the sweet relief of temporary success. Episode 3. The Influencer Invasion. A week after Gilda Tarquinio's guardedly positive review, Trattoria Sorpresa found itself bustling with newfound attention. Not only did local Romans come in droves, curious about the unusual umami, but a wave of social media influencers started tagging and reposting about the trattoria, fueled by the mystique of something's different here. Meet il duetto digitale. It was 4 p.m. on a Tuesday when Domenico noticed two flamboyantly dressed young women step inside. One wore an electric blue jumpsuit with chunky neon sneakers. The other donned a pair of massive sunglasses that hid half her face. They introduced themselves as Leia and Marzia, collectively known as Il Duetto Digitale, a popular Italian social media duo with over 2 million followers on various platforms. Leia, in a sing-song voice, "Ciao, Chef Domenico, right? We just had to come after seeing Gilda Tarquinio's review. We want to do a feature on Trattoria Sorpresa for our channel." Domenico's heart fluttered. A feature on a social media channel that big. The free publicity could be huge, or disastrous if they uncovered the secret. He eyed them warily, trying to keep a calm demeanor. Domenico. "Ciao, Leia. Marzia. Welcome. We, appreciate your interest. Please, have a seat." The duo squealed in unison, stepping around to find the perfect corner for the best light. The restaurant was fairly quiet at this hour, so Domenico offered them prime seats by the window. Immediately, they whipped out phones, ring lights, and miniature tripods, transforming the table into a makeshift studio. On-camera chaos. Leia gestured to Domenico to sit with them for an on-camera interview. The staff looked on in mild panic, worried about what Domenico might say. Domenico pasted a grin on his face and joined them, adjusting his chef's coat nervously. Leia, pressing record. "Ciao, foodie fam. Leia here with my partner in crime, Marzia. Today, we're at the oh-so-trendy Trattoria Sorpresa in the heart of Rome. With us is Chef Domenico Fontana himself." Marzia, posing dramatically. "We're here to investigate the rumors. Is it truly the most unique Italian cuisine in town? We'll find out." Domenico cleared his throat. "Benvenute. I hope you enjoy our dishes." Leia. "Chef, rumor says your pasta has this crazy twist, like Gilda Tarquinio mentioned a miso taste, which is so not typical. Any, special secrets you want to share with our fans?" Domenico forced a casual laugh. "Secrets, signorina, are best kept, but I can say we pride ourselves on fresh ingredients and, well, a little creativity never hurt anyone." Leia and Marzia giggled, lighting up the camera with their flamboyant presence. They ended the quick on-camera introduction and then demanded to try the restaurant's most acclaimed dishes. Domenico obliged, quietly signaling the kitchen to produce their showstopper plates: tagliatelle al ragù, polpette, and the famed cannoli for dessert. A terrifying request. All went smoothly until Marcia clapped her hands with a sudden idea. Marcia. "Oh, we should film a behind-the-scenes tour of the kitchen for our viewers. Everyone loves that, seeing how the magic is made. Maybe we can watch Chef Domenico preparing a dish." Domenico's internal alarm bells blared. A behind-the-scenes tour was the last thing they needed. The kitchen was full of plant-based contraband, boxes of soy milk, tubs of vegan cheese, jars of nutritional yeast. One glimpse of those labels on camera would blow their cover sky high. Domenico, scrambling for an excuse. Normally that'd be lovely, but our kitchen is very small. Also, we have health and safety regulations about outside visitors. We can't just—" Leia pouted theatrically. "But chef, our fans love an inside look. Think of how many new customers you could get." She batted her eyelashes, phone camera still rolling. Marzia. Yes, it would be a huge opportunity. We'll do a quick snippet, like 5 minutes, tops. Domenico glanced around, desperate. If he outright refused, it might look suspicious. But if he let them in, catastrophe loomed. He'd have to rely on the staff to do some unbelievably quick subterfuge. Domenico, sighing with a forced grin. Perhaps just a very quick snippet, if I can get my staff to tidy up. We wouldn't want the viewers to see our mess. Leia squealed, "Yay!" While Domenico calmly excused himself, the camera still pointed at his retreating back. Operation Kitchen Clean Sweep. Domenico burst into the kitchen, eyes wild, to find Giovanna, Serafina, and Rocco huddled around the prep table. Tommaso and Lucia were washing dishes. All of them stared at Domenico in alarm. Domenico, we've got 5 minutes before Leia and Marzia come in for a behind-the-scenes video. Hide everything. I mean, every last vegan label, every suspicious container. Immediately, chaos erupted. Serafina shoved the miso tub into the fridge's vegetable drawer, burying it under spinach. Giovanna tucked the soy sauce behind large cans of tomatoes. Rocco rushed to peel the soy milk labels off the cartons, handing them to Tommaso to toss out the back door. Camilla, in the corner, was stuffing a bag of nutritional yeast into her apron, hoping no one would notice the lumps. Camilla, frantic. I'll just stand with my back to the camera so they don't see this. They scurried like frantic mice, each trying to conceal evidence. Pots simmered on the stove, dangerously close to boiling over. Domenico grabbed a stack of suspicious packaging, vegan sausage wrappers, and shoved them into the oven, silently praying no one would turn it on. Within 2 minutes, they had achieved a semblance of normalcy. The counters were mostly clear, the containers relabeled or hidden. Domenico slicked back his hair, trying to maintain calm. Domenico, just smile and don't let them open anything. If they ask too many questions, mention a secret family recipe. That's the code for shut it down. Capiche? The staff nodded, hearts pounding. The Grand Fake Tour. Leia and Marja burst in, cameras rolling. Wow, this is cozy, Leia squealed, panning around the cramped kitchen. Marja zoomed in on Domenico as he stirred a pot. Marzia. Chef, what are you cooking right now? Domenico forced a broad smile. This is our house tomato sauce. We start with fresh tomatoes, onions, garlic, olive oil. He trailed off, carefully omitting any mention of non-traditional additives like nutritional yeast. Behind him, Rocco hovered protectively near a corner where a whisk protruded from a suspicious mixing bowl of aquafaba meringue for tomorrow's dessert. If the influencers questioned it, Rocco would have to invent a plausible cover story on the spot. Leia, can we peek inside your fridge for a quick shot? Show our viewers your fresh produce and stuff? Domenico's soul nearly left his body. The fridge was precisely where they had stashed the miso, tofu, and all sorts of plant-based giveaways. Domenico, quickly stepping in front of the fridge. I'm afraid the fridge is a bit chaotic right now. We just had a massive produce delivery, and it's all jumbled. Let's keep it to the stovetop, shall we? Marja looked a bit disappointed, but Leia quickly pivoted, capturing footage of freshly chopped herbs and tomatoes on the counter. The staff maintained bright smiles, carefully orchestrating every camera angle to exclude the hidden contraband. Domenico demonstrated stirring the sauce, swirling it around with exaggerated flair. Domenico. We let it simmer for hours, to let the flavors marry, a technique passed down in my family for generations. Marja zoomed in on the pot. Smells divine. I can't wait to taste it. In the background, Giovanna pretended to be tidying up a tray of what looked like mozzarella slices, actually vegan mozzarella. She quickly flipped a kitchen towel over them, hoping the camera wouldn't catch a label. After a tense 5 minutes that felt like 5 hours, Leia and Marja wrapped up their behind-the-scenes segment. Leia beaming at the camera. Well, foodie fam, there you have it. an exclusive look at the beating heart of Trattoria Sorpresa's kitchen. We'll be back with a taste test in just a moment. They stepped out, their laughter echoing in the corridor. Domenico sagged against the counter, relief coursing through him. The staff all exchanged wide-eyed expressions. They had survived, but only barely. A new challenge: live stream tasting. Thinking the worst was over, Domenico rejoined Leah and Marcia in the dining area, but to his dismay, they announced they'd be doing a live stream tasting for their fans, complete with Q&A from viewers. Domenico winced, imagining the random questions that might pop up. Leah and Marcia arranged their ring light, set up their phone on a stand, and tapped to begin streaming. Immediately, the phone screen filled with scrolling comments, heart emojis, and requests from fans. Marcia, to the camera. Ciao everyone, we're about to try the house special tagliatelle al ragù, courtesy of chef Domenico Fontana. Here we go. Domenico served them the pasta. Leah twirled a forkful, closing her eyes as she savored the first bite. She made an over-the-top moan of delight, prompting more hearts to explode on the screen. Marcia joined in, exclaiming, "Mamma mia! This is sensational. The sauce is rich but not heavy." Marcia, reading a comment. User at Supercarnivore 420 asks, "Is the pasta fresh or dried?" Great question. Chef? Domenico smiled. It's fresh, made in-house daily with semolina flour. We roll it out by hand. More comments scrolled by. Another user asked, "What's that meaty texture in the sauce? Is it beef or pork?" Marcia peered at Domenico expectantly. Marcia: "Yes, chef. The viewers want to know about the meat blend in the ragù." A bead of sweat slid down Domenico's temple. He forced an easy chuckle. Well, we typically use a mix of lean cuts from a local farm, but the exact proportions? That's the secret that gives it our signature taste. He prayed to every saint in the Italian pantheon that no one would ask further. Meanwhile, the phone screen was a frenzy of speculation, some praising the healthiness of the dish, others demanding to know more about the rumored miso. Marcia read one last comment. Marcia, user at One Green Planet, says, "I swear this looks vegan. Are you sure you're not using tofu or something?" A hush fell. Domenico's heart thundered in his chest. Leah giggled uncertainly. Marcia fixed the camera on Domenico again. Leah: "So chef, is it?" Domenico put on a theatrical grin. "Vegan? Haha, how intriguing. We are an Italian trattoria, signorina, but we respect all dietary choices. Let's just say it's a dish everyone can enjoy." Marcia and Leah laughed off the tension, quickly moving on. But Domenico's pulse remained in his throat. That question had cut close to the bone. The live stream ended soon after, with Leah and Marcia praising the meal and promising to upload a final review later that week. Aftermath and the booming buzz. Within hours, snippets of Leah and Marcia's visit began circulating on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Comments poured in. Many viewers raved about how delicious everything looked. Others latched onto the "is it vegan" speculation. Unwittingly, Il Duetto Digitale had amplified the rumor. Could Trattoria Sorpresa be secretly vegan? Although many dismissed the idea as ridiculous, no Roman chef would stoop that low, the rumor soared across social media platforms. Domenico discovered threads on Twitter debating the authenticity of his dishes. Thread user: "That sauce looks too clean to be real beef." Reply: "Nah, you can see the oil on top. It's real." Another reply: "Could be olive oil, though." Who knows? Domenico, reading these comments late into the night, felt both anxious and amused. The city's curiosity and suspicion were at an all-time high. Despite or because of the rumors, more people flocked to the trattoria, wanting to taste this bizarre phenomenon for themselves. A stubborn traditionalist returns. One morning, as the staff prepared for lunch, Domenico was startled to see Signor Giacomo Rossi, the traditionalist from earlier, re-enter the trattoria. He marched in, eyes narrowed. Rocco recognized him instantly and hustled to greet him. Rocco, nervous politeness. Buongiorno, Signor Rossi. Would you like your usual table? Rossi snorted. I've come to see what all this nonsense about being secretly vegan is. I've seen the internet chatter. Ridiculous. But I must be sure. Bring me your tagliatelle al ragù and a glass of vino rosso. Domenico exchanged a worried glance with Serafina. They complied, delivering a plate of the same seitan-based ragù. Rossi ate slowly, scrutinizing each bite as though it were under a microscope. At one point, he lifted a chunk of meat on his fork and pressed it between the tines, testing its firmness. Finally, he put his fork down. Strange. I taste no gamey flavor, but it's still meat. Lean, but meat. He stood up, smoothing his suit jacket. I remain unconvinced about these rumors. Good day. With that, he paid and left, leaving Domenico more unsettled than ever. It was a victory, but the next rumor-fueled skeptic might not be so easily fooled. Leah and Marzia's final video goes viral. A few days passed, and Domenico nearly forgot about Il Duetto Digitale's promised full review. Then, on a bustling Saturday evening, Camilla raced into the kitchen, phone in hand, eyes wide. Camilla. They posted it! Leah and Marzia's video is up, and it's going viral. Over 500,000 views in the first hour. Pots rattled as Domenico dropped the ladle in shock. What do they say? Camilla scrolled through the video, summarizing for the staff. They praised the flavors, the atmosphere, calling it a must-visit in Rome. They teased the possibility of it being secretly vegan, referencing the miso flavor and the behind-the-scenes fridge denial. They concluded with, "We're not saying it's vegan, but we're not saying it. You be the judge." Pandemonium ensued in the dining area. Customers who were already seated whipped out their phones to watch the new video. Some declared it was nonsense that an Italian restaurant would hide its vegan identity. Others, however, grew intrigued, ordering multiple dishes to test for themselves. Domenico, to the staff. We must be on our toes. People might try to catch us off guard. Let's not deviate from the plan. We keep cooking as we do, keep the place tidy, and be vague but charming about any direct questions. The staff nodded, bracing for the wave of curious diners. That night was the busiest they'd ever experienced, with a line out the door. The rumor only fanned the flames of interest, drawing in everyone from hardcore carnivores who wanted to prove it was real meat to adventurous foodies hoping to unmask the vegan subterfuge. Despite the chaos, Domenico marveled at how the rumor, once terrifying, was now driving unprecedented success. His employees were half exhausted, half ecstatic, reeling in tips and compliments. Some customers even expressed delight at the possibility of a sneaky vegan meal, praising Domenico for his subtlety. Episode 3, Wrap-Up. At closing time, the staff collapsed into chairs. Plates, cups, and silverware lay scattered, evidence of the day's culinary frenzy. Domenico poured everyone a small glass of wine, vegan wine, of course, though the staff never advertised that fact. Domenico, raising his glass. To Trattoria Sorpresa. We may be living on the knife's edge, but we're thriving. Salute. They all clinked glasses, a sense of camaraderie and defiance in their smiles. The secret, ironically, was fueling the restaurant's fame rather than tearing it down, at least for now. But how long could they keep dancing this delicate dance? Domenico pushed the thought aside. For tonight, they would savor the victory. Thus ended episode 3, marked by ring lights, social media hype, and the swirling speculation that Trattoria Sorpresa was either the boldest new player on the Roman culinary scene or the sneakiest. Possibly both. All Domenico knew was that, for once, the tide of public interest might be turning in their favor. Episode 4, The Private Party of Peril. The aftermath of Leia and Marzia's viral video brought with it a steady stream of adventurous eaters. But the real challenge arrived when Domenico received a call from Countess Aurelia della Torre, a venerable figure in Roman society, who requested a private evening event at Trattoria Sorpresa for 20 of her esteemed friends. The Countess had heard remarkable buzz about Domenico's cooking and wanted to host a refined dinner party, promising a handsome fee and, more importantly, an opportunity for Domenico to impress an elite crowd. Yet Domenico felt a stab of fear. This would mean 20 pairs of discerning eyes, snooping around for any sign of impropriety, plus the inevitable curiosity about the rumor that the place was vegan. The guest list of nightmares. On the day of the private event, Domenico pored over the guest list provided by the Countess. It was a who's who of Rome's aristocracy and high society. Among them were titled nobles, successful entrepreneurs, a retired opera diva, and Gulp, a senator known for his staunch defense of traditional agriculture. Domenico, nervously scanning the list. We have to be impeccable. These people will not hesitate to grill us, literally and figuratively, about every ingredient. Serafina. Look at this name. Senator Amedeo Farnese. He's the one who championed that protection of Italian meats bill last year. Rocco. Great. He'll probably want to confirm we're using real Italian pork, or we face the guillotine. Domenico shook his head, refusing to buckle under the pressure. We do what we do best. We give them a feast they'll never forget. Understood? The staff nodded, grim determination in their eyes. The plan was to serve a multi-course menu, each course carefully designed to mimic the best of Italian cuisine, all 100% plant-based. Domenico's mission, keep them blissfully unaware. Gearing up for battle. They closed the restaurant to the public for the night, dedicating every resource to the Countess's dinner party. The kitchen erupted in a flurry of chopping, sautéing, baking, and taste testing. Camilla crafted tiny pastry cups filled with cashew ricotta and spinach for the antipasti. Giovanna simmered gallons of tomato sauce for pasta courses. Rocco meticulously set the tables with fine linens, silverware, and crystal glasses, ensuring an ambiance worthy of Rome's elite. A particularly elaborate dish was the salsiccia e fagioli, a hearty bean stew that traditionally included sausage. Domenico had spent days perfecting a seitan-based sausage that would hold up in the stew without breaking apart. He tested it in a small pot, sipping the broth. Domenico to Serafina. The texture is good, but I need a hint more smokiness. Could you fetch the liquid smoke from the storeroom? Serafina grimaced. We're running low. But yes, I'll get what's left. Liquid smoke was their secret weapon to mimic the smokiness of certain meats, but storing it was risky, as the label could look suspicious if discovered. They'd done their best to repackage it in a small amber bottle labeled Old Balsamic Reserve. Enter the aristocrats. By 7 p.m., the Countess and her entourage began arriving. The Countess was a stately woman in her 60s, draped in an elegant evening gown and adorned with pearls. Her voice echoed through the restaurant. Countess Aurelia. Domenico, darling, such a pleasure. I've heard rumors about your culinary wonders. We're all quite intrigued. She introduced Domenico to her companions, each exuding an air of refined curiosity. Senator Farnese, in particular, studied Domenico with a keen gaze. I've also heard interesting rumors. Something about a vegan scandal. How silly. But these are the times we live in, no? Domenico chuckled nervously. Rumors do swirl, Senator. Tonight, you'll taste for yourself how unfounded they are. With that, the aristocrats took their seats, chatting amongst themselves. Domenico retreated to the kitchen, heart pounding. This dinner had to be flawless. One slip could ruin everything. The courses unfold. Antipasto, a trio of small bites. Bruschetta with roasted tomatoes, crostini with mushroom pâté. made from blended walnuts and mushrooms, and spinach ricotta cups, cashew-based ricotta. The guests murmured approval. Domenico, circulating among the tables, heard words like light but flavorful, delicate, unexpected creaminess. Primo, homemade ravioli stuffed with a tofu spinach mixture, served in a fragrant tomato basil sauce. Senator Farnese poked at the ravioli suspiciously, but declared them quite tender and surprisingly good. Secondo, the star of the show, salsiccia e fagioli. The waiters presented each guest with a steaming bowl of beans in a rich broth, dotted with savory sausage slices. Domenico hovered, feeling the weight of 100 eyes on the dish. The Countess took her first spoonful, eyes widening with delight. Countess Aurelia. Magnifico, Domenico. This sausage is unlike any I've had. Lean, yes, but so tasty. Bravo. The rest of the guests echoed similar praise. Farnese, the toughest critic, chewed slowly, brows knitted, but ultimately nodded. Good depth of flavor, he muttered, as though grudgingly impressed. Trouble brewing. The opera diva. Midway through the second course, a shrill voice cut through the genteel conversation. Madame Silvia Bartolomei, the retired opera diva, was fanning herself dramatically. Madame Bartolomei. Waiter, oh waiter, I require more bread, immediately. And someone fetch me water with no bubbles. I despise sparkling water. It irritates my throat. Rocco hurried to her side with bread, while Camilla dashed off for still water. Madame Bartolomei sniffed the stew, wrinkling her nose. Is there saffron in here? I'm allergic to saffron. I can't risk my precious voice. Domenico, overhearing this from the kitchen doorway, went pale. There wasn't saffron in the stew, no need for it. But if Madame Bartolomei started making a fuss, she might demand to see ingredient lists or rummage around. He flew to her side, a concerned expression on his face. Domenico. Signora, I assure you, there is no saffron in this dish. Only tomatoes, beans, herbs, and sausage. She huffed. Good. I'd hate to have a reaction. I must protect my instrument, you understand. He nodded vigorously, stepping back. But her dramatic flair made Domenico's nerves sing. He could easily imagine her prying into the kitchen. One glimpse of soy sauce or nutritional yeast, and she might raise an area of accusations. An unexpected kitchen invasion. Just when Domenico thought the evening might proceed smoothly, he spotted two late arrivals. Countess Aurelia's nephew, a young man with slicked-back hair, and his date, a stylish woman in an all-white suit. The nephew was polite enough, but the woman oozed curiosity. Woman, to Rocco. This place is rumored to be secretly vegan, right? I must see the kitchen for myself. Rocco tried to wave her off politely. She insisted, even leaning around him to peer through the kitchen's swinging door. Alarmed, Domenico motioned for Serafina to covertly stash any questionable packaging once again. Domenico, stepping in quickly. Signorina, I'm afraid the kitchen is quite full at the moment. Hot stoves, sharp knives, you understand. Perhaps after dinner, a quick glimpse, yes? The nephew placed a hand on her shoulder. Alora, sweetheart, come sit. We didn't come here to barge in on the chef. She pouted, but acquiesced, giving Domenico a suspicious side eye. Truffles to the rescue. Domenico decided the best defense was a captivating offense. He conferred with Camilla about unveiling a special dessert course, tartufo al cioccolato, a chocolate truffle dessert drizzled with liqueur. Real truffles were typically made with cream, but Camilla's version used coconut milk, cocoa butter, and sugar, whipped into a luxurious ganache. She shaped them into elegant spheres, dusted them with cocoa powder, and planned a dramatic flambé presentation at the table. The moment dessert arrived, flaming with brandy, the crowd gasped in delight. Even Madame Bartolomei paused her fussing to admire the show. Camera phones snapped pictures, capturing the flamboyant finale. Domenico prayed the spectacle would keep them enthralled enough to forget any urge to investigate the kitchen further. The senator's demand. As the flambé died down, Domenico noticed Senator Farnese beckoning him over. Domenico approached with polite composure. Senator Farnese. Chef, I must admit your dinner was most impressive. But there's a question that's been nagging me. I've heard rumors that you do not source your sausage from local butchers. In my position, I strongly support local farmers. Could you provide the name of your supplier? I'd like to ensure they meet the standards we set in the Senate. Domenico's pulse hammered. This was dangerous territory. He bowed his head as if flattered. I do understand your concerns, Senator. We have a small artisanal supplier who operates rather discreetly, but I assure you they follow all local regulations. Perhaps I can get their contact for you at a later time. Senator Farnese, persistent. Yes, do so. I'd like to speak with them personally about their farming practices. Domenico forced a courteous smile. Of course, Senator. I'll be in touch. He knew he'd have to invent an elaborate story or find some obscure front for the Satan. The last thing he needed was Farnese investigating a non-existent butcher. Another layer of subterfuge to keep track of. A moment of chaos. Toward the end of the evening, the staff began clearing plates. Domenico excused himself to retrieve a fresh pot of coffee. As he carried it from the kitchen, a loud crash rang out in the dining area. He rushed in, coffee pot trembling. It was the nephew's date. She had tripped on the hem of the countess's gown and stumbled, sending her purse tumbling onto the floor directly next to Rocco's foot. Rocco, juggling an empty platter, lost his balance and dropped the platter. It clanged, narrowly missing a glass of wine. For a moment, everyone froze, expecting shattered glass or splatters of stew. Miraculously, the platter landed face down on the floor, unbroken. But in her shock, the woman shrieked, "Oh, my bag!" She bent to collect her spilled contents. Makeup, a phone, and some suspicious documents fell out. Rocco bent down to help, but the motion knocked a sauce-stained spoon from his apron onto the floor, narrowly missing her shoes. The comedic flurry lasted only seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Domenico hurried to help, heart pounding. If there had been any hidden evidence or packaging on Rocco, it could have spelled doom. Thankfully, Rocco had already stashed everything. The fiasco ended with flustered apologies and a smattering of polite laughter from the guests, who resumed conversation as Domenico poured coffee. A near disaster, but once again, the secret remained safe, if only barely. Parting words from the Countess. At last, around midnight, the Countess declared the dinner a success. The guests, satiated and impressed, gradually departed in a swirl of goodbyes. Farnese gave Domenico a pointed nod, silently reminding him about that supplier information. Domenico nodded back, trying not to tremble. Finally, the Countess took Domenico's hands in hers. "Magnificent evening, my dear. I shall tell all my friends of your unique talents, though I must say, I do wonder how your sausages manage to be so airy, quite unlike any I've tasted before. Intriguing, no?" Domenico, bowing graciously. "I'm thrilled you enjoyed it, Countess. A chef must keep a few mysteries, wouldn't you agree?" She laughed softly, patting his hand. "Indeed. I look forward to uncovering them in due time." With that cryptic remark, she swept out, leaving Domenico with a head full of questions and a heart pounding with relief that the night was over. Cleaning up and confessions. The staff collapsed at their usual post-event routine, scrubbing, sweeping, washing mountains of dishes. The tension that had coiled inside them all night slowly unwound. Serafina, with a dramatic sigh. "That was too close. The senator wants the butcher's contact information. What are we going to do?" Domenico. "We'll cross that bridge if he actually calls. Maybe I'll claim the butcher is so old-fashioned he doesn't own a phone. I'll figure something out." Camilla. We definitely earned our wages tonight. I've never seen so many suspicious glances from so many fancy people. Rocco, if it weren't for the Countess's money and connections, I'd swear never to do this again, but we do need the business. They all agreed they were exhausted from walking the tightrope of deception. Yet the alternative, closing the restaurant or revealing the truth, wasn't an option for them. They believed in Domenico's mission, but sometimes the comedic subterfuge felt like a farce worthy of a stage play at the Teatro dell'Opera. Episode 4. Ending. When the final dish was dried and the last table wiped clean, Domenico took a moment alone on the rooftop garden. The moonlight illuminated the basil leaves which fluttered in the night breeze. He let the day's stress seep into the starry sky above. Domenico, murmuring, "Nonna, I wish you could see how far we've come, but also how tangled this web has gotten." Despite the swirling rumors, the snooping aristocrats, and the pushy senator, the restaurant had pulled off another grand event. Guests went home none the wiser. The comedic secret lived another day. Yet Domenico couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were closing in. Each new success brought new scrutiny. He knew he'd have to be even more resourceful moving forward, because the bigger they became, the bigger the target on their backs. With a resigned sigh, he shut the rooftop door and headed down to lock up. Another chapter in the vegan saga closed under Rome's ancient sky, and Domenico could only hope the final act would somehow deliver a happy ending for Trattoria Sorpresa. Episode 5. The brink of exposure. Whispers turn into headlines. One crisp morning, barely a month after the Countess's party, Domenico's phone buzzed relentlessly. He rubbed his eyes, still half asleep in his small apartment above the trattoria, and squinted at a barrage of incoming messages. Words like exposed, scandal, and vegan jumped out at him. He flung the covers off, raced downstairs to the restaurant, and found Rocco and Giovanna looking grim, sipping espresso like it was their last defense against panic. On the screen of a tablet, an online article blared in bold letters. Trattoria Sorpresa. Is Rome's hottest restaurant secretly vegan? A local gossip site had run a piece combining quotes from suspicious diners, the influencer speculation, Gilda Tarquinio's comments about miso, and an unsubstantiated claim from an anonymous source that Domenico had been seen buying huge amounts of tofu at a specialty shop. The article ended with a dramatic flourish. Is this the greatest con in Italian culinary history? Domenico, slumping into a chair. Madonna mia. This is worse than rumors on social media. It's a direct accusation. Rocco. It's all over Twitter. People are either outraged at the deception or excited, calling it a genius move. But the main question is, will the authorities or the public try to shut us down? Giovanna. We have to do some damage control. We can't let this blow up in our faces. Domenico rubbed his temples. The secret that had once fueled their mystique now threatened to tear them apart. But what could they do? Confessing would be business suicide. Denying it outright could lead to more scrutiny. They had to be cunning. Domenico's press statement. Desperate, Domenico decided to release a carefully worded statement via the Trattoria's social media pages. With the help of Lucia, the savviest with technology, he composed a response that neither confirmed nor denied the restaurant's menu was entirely plant-based. Trattoria Sorpresa is proud to serve dishes that celebrate Italian heritage with a modern twist. We use fresh ingredients, local produce, and yes, sometimes international flavors. We welcome diners of all preferences and assure them of our commitment to quality and authenticity. If our recipes defy expectations, well, that's the sorpresa we promise. We remain, as ever, dedicated to delighting your palate. It was vague, it was slippery, and it was the best Domenico could do. Lucia clicked post, and they waited, hearts in their throats. Social media erupted with mixed reactions. Some fans applauded the statement's cheeky ambiguity. Others mocked it as an obvious dodge. Meanwhile, more and more customers started calling, demanding to know if the place was vegan or not, or if they served real meat. The phone rang incessantly. A health inspector arrives. To compound the stress, the next day a health inspector from the local municipality showed up, stepping through the trattoria's door with a stern face and a clipboard. Domenico's blood ran cold. Inspector Benedetti. Salve. We've received some reports about irregularities in your labeling and storage. May I have a look at your kitchen and inventory? His voice was neutral, but Domenico sensed the underlying suspicion. He forced a polite smile. Of course, signore. We have nothing to hide. He discreetly signaled the staff. They sprang into action, each aware of their role in this crisis. Serafina quickly stowed any suspicious containers behind the produce. Rocco donned gloves to appear especially sanitary. Giovanna flipped the cheese labels so they faced inward. Inspector Benedetti prowled around, checking the fridge, the pantry, the stove area. He examined labels, made notes on his clipboard, occasionally squinting at Domenico. A single slip, a vegan certified stamp, or a soy milk carton left out in the open, and the jig would be up. Domenico's heart hammered as he tried not to look guilty. Inspector Benedetti, poking at a container. What's in here? Domenico. Ah, a marinade for our house sausage. It's a blend of herbs and, spices. Inspector Benedetti, opening the lid, sniffing. Smells peppery. Where's the meat stored? Domenico gestured to a separate fridge in the corner, one rarely opened. Inside were vacuum-sealed sausages, which were actually the seitan links they prepared daily. No brand name was visible. Domenico had them neatly wrapped in plain butcher paper. Domenico prayed the inspector wouldn't probe further. The inspector frowned but said nothing. He scribbled a few more notes, checked the source station, and verified the cleanliness of surfaces. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he snapped his clipboard shut. Inspector Benedetti, you seem to be in compliance. I don't see any immediate violations. However, I'll note that your labeling is somewhat vague. Ensure your ingredients are clearly marked and not mislabeled. Domenico nodded, feigning calm. Understood. Thank you for your thoroughness. Once the inspector left, Domenico and the staff exhaled collectively. Another bullet dodged, but the tension was suffocating. A devious customer plot. Days later, with the rumor storm still raging, Domenico noticed a cluster of 3 customers who looked suspiciously like they were on a mission. They were whispering, taking photos of the plates, occasionally craning their necks to peer into the kitchen. At one point, Domenico caught one of them trying to slip behind the swinging door to the kitchen with a phone. Domenico quickly stepped in front of him. Domenico. Mi scusi, signore. The kitchen is off limits. Mysterious customer, smugly. Just wanted to see what you've got cooking. Heard some stories about tofu or something. Domenico, with a thin smile. Our recipes are proprietary, signore. I'm sure you understand. The trio retreated to their table, whispering. A sense of paranoia gripped Domenico. Were they bloggers, reporters, or just bored troublemakers? Possibly all 3. He clung to the vow. Remain discreet, offer plausible deniability, keep cooking amazing food. A plea from the staff. In a late-night staff meeting, tensions spilled over. Rocco admitted he was losing sleep, worried about losing his job if the scandal exploded. Giovanna worried about her family's reaction. She had older relatives who might disown her if they realized she was secretly part of a vegan scheme. Camilla spoke of the exhaustion of constantly hiding ingredients, always second-guessing if something was left in plain sight. Camilla, voice trembling. I love what we're doing, but it's getting so hard. Every day feels like a war zone. Maybe we should just come clean? Serafina. If we do, we might lose half our customers instantly. People here can be so traditional. They may feel betrayed. The group fell silent, looking to Domenico for guidance. He felt the weight of their hopes, fears, and loyalty pressing on him. He swallowed hard, remembering why they started this in the first place, to show that vegan cuisine could be just as satisfying, if not more so, without the prejudice of preconceived notions. Domenico, softly, "We're in this together. I promise. I'll find a way for us to keep going. Give me time." They nodded, a fragile solidarity linking them. The vow stood, for now. An offer too good to refuse. Just when things seemed darkest, Domenico received a surprising call from a well-known travel and food TV program, La Bella Cucina, hosted by the charismatic Marco Vitale. They wanted to feature Trattoria Sorpresa on an upcoming episode, highlighting innovative Italian cuisine. Domenico hesitated. This was huge exposure, the kind that could skyrocket the restaurant's fame or blow the secret wide open. But the staff needed hope. They needed a win. Marco Vitale on the phone. "Chef Domenico, I've heard your dishes are refreshingly modern. We'd love to film for a day, interview you, and watch you cook a signature dish. This will air nationwide." A swirl of fear and excitement gripped Domenico. After a moment's thought, he accepted. If they could fool a national audience, maybe they'd cement their reputation enough to survive. Or it could be the final nail in the coffin. Either way, it was a gamble worth taking. Prepping for the cameras. For a week, Domenico and the staff meticulously prepared a safe menu for Marco Vitale's filming. They chose dishes that required minimal direct mention of meat, focusing on produce-driven recipes. Domenico decided on pasta alla norma, a Sicilian classic with eggplant, tomato sauce, and ricotta salata. Vegan tofu-based, but disguised with extra salt and herbs. Pizza marinara e funghi, typically no cheese in a marinara pizza, but Domenico planned to drizzle a cashew cream swirl at the end, calling it a house specialty sauce. Panna cotta al coco, Camilla's signature coconut-based panna cotta topped with fresh berries. They'd keep all other vegan ingredients well hidden. The day before filming, the staff once again scrubbed the kitchen of incriminating labels and stored the vegan cheese packaging off-site in Rocco's cousin's garage. Filming day chaos. Marco Vitale arrived with a small camera crew, greeting Domenico with hearty enthusiasm. The cameras rolled as Domenico walked Marco through the trattoria, highlighting the rustic decor and family photographs on the wall, including Domenico's suspiciously scowling nonna, who had no idea about the vegan ruse. In the kitchen, Domenico demonstrated making the sauce for pasta alla norma. He skillfully avoided referencing the tofu-based ricotta, focusing on the fresh tomatoes, basil, and olive oil. The tension in the background was palpable. Any slip could be recorded for national TV. Marco, smiling at the camera. Chef Domenico is known for blending traditional Italian passion with unexpected twists. Now, let's talk about your cheese choice here, chef. Ricotta salata is typical in a norma. Any special technique you use? Domenico's breath hitched. He had to lie on camera without being obvious. He calmly explained how they salt and press their homemade ricotta, mentioning nothing about tofu. Marco. Fascinating. Now, viewers, see how this melts just enough into the sauce. Beautiful. Behind the scenes, Serafina supervised the process, making sure no stray containers or vegan references were in sight. Rocco kept the crew from opening any suspicious drawers, offering them coffee and pastries whenever they got too curious. A suspicious producer. However, Domenico noticed one of Marco's producers eyeing the kitchen a bit too intently. She lingered near the fridge, scanning the shelves. At one point, Domenico saw her glance at an unmarked container of ricotta, but before she could approach, he intervened. Domenico, blocking her path politely. "Ah, signora, can I help you find something?" Producer, startled. No, Just looking for a place to set my bag. He guided her away, heart pounding. The cameras kept rolling, capturing Domenico and Marco cooking, laughing and bantering about Italian culinary traditions. Domenico prayed the day would end without incident. The taste test. Finally, Marco Vitale sat at a table with Domenico to taste the completed dishes on camera. The crew filmed every bite. Pasta alla norma. Marco took a mouthful, praising the balance of tomato and eggplant. Exquisite. And the ricotta salata is so fresh. It has a slightly different texture, fresher than usual. Domenico feigned confidence, nodding. Pizza marinara e funghi. Crisp crust, tangy sauce, meaty mushrooms. Marco pointed to the cashew cream swirl. This sauce is intriguing. Garlicky, creamy. Is it just extra olive oil and garlic? Domenico nodded vaguely. We whip it to create that velvety texture. Panna cotta al cocco. Marco's eyes lit up at the silky, tropical flavor. This is a revelation, chef. So light, yet decadent. A perfect finish. Each compliment felt like stepping off a landmine unscathed. Domenico's adrenaline soared with every passing moment. If they could fool Italy's beloved TV chef, perhaps they truly were unstoppable. The end of filming. After the final wrap, Marco shook Domenico's hand. Chef, I must say, you've impressed me. I've filmed in dozens of Italian kitchens, but I've never tasted anything quite like your cooking. I'm eager to share this with the nation. Domenico thanked him, managing to conceal his trembling relief. The crew packed up. The suspicious producer gave Domenico one last lingering look, but left without confronting him. Domenico released a shaky breath. Once they were gone, the staff huddled in the dining room. They had survived the highest stakes scrutiny yet. Now all that remained was to see how the broadcast would be received. Domenico's only hope was that it would further intrigue the public and keep them guessing, rather than igniting a riot. A glimmer of hope. Over the following week, tensions remained high, but the wave of new accusations calmed somewhat. The health inspector's benign report took some wind out of the scandal's sails. Regular customers, many of whom suspected the vegan truth, still returned for the food they loved. Meanwhile, others simply enjoyed the gastronomic mystery. Domenico felt a cautious optimism. Maybe they'd weather the storm. He watched the staff with gratitude. Their comedic subterfuge had created comedic chaos, but it also forged a bond that felt unbreakable. Each night, the vow held them together, ensuring that not a single guest left with definitive proof of the plant-based reality. Yet an undercurrent of fear lingered. What if the truth did come out? Domenico pushed the thought away. They had a more pressing concern. The episode of La Bella Cucina would air soon, and with it, a fresh wave of attention. Could they handle it? Episode 5. Conclusion. As the staff locked up after another long day, Domenico found himself alone in the dining room, dimly lit by the street lamp outside. He ran his hand over one of the red and white tablecloths, recalling how simple life had seemed when he opened Trattoria Sorpresa. Now they were at the epicenter of a swirling controversy that threatened everything they'd built. But at least, for this moment, they still stood. For one more day, they had fooled the world. Domenico closed his eyes, exhaling a silent prayer that tomorrow would be kinder. With a weary smile, he flipped the lights off and headed upstairs, determined to face the next challenge with the same clever grit that had carried them this far. Little did he know that fate had an even bigger surprise in store, one that would rock Trattoria Sorpresa to its core and rewrite their destiny in a way none of them ever expected. Episode 6. The surprising finale, Michelin magic. An ordinary day, until it wasn't. 2 weeks had passed since the filming of La Bella Cucina. Trattoria Sorpresa hummed along with its usual energy. Dishes clattering, waiters weaving between tables, the staff performing their comedic dance of deception. Domenico stood by the kitchen window, evaluating the crowd. Loyal locals slurping pasta, curious tourists snapping photos, a few skeptical faces scanning the menu. Everything felt normal. That's why it was so jarring when the phone rang and Serafina answered, her expression transforming from mild boredom to absolute shock. Serafina, stammering. Chef, you might want to take this. Domenico wiped his hands, took the receiver. Pronto! A polite male voice identified himself. This is Franco Martinelli, from the Michelin Guide. Domenico nearly dropped the phone. Michelin? The ultimate arbiter of fine dining? He managed a faint squeak of acknowledgement. Franco Martinelli. Chef Fontana, I'm calling with some news. Our inspectors have quietly visited Trattoria Sorpresa multiple times over the past few months. I'm pleased to inform you that in our upcoming guide, you'll be awarded 2 Michelin stars. Silence. Domenico's heart hammered so loudly he could hardly hear. 2 stars. That was beyond even his wildest dreams. It was near impossible for a small trattoria, especially one with such controversy swirling around it. He clutched the counter, struggling for words. Franco Martinelli, gentle amusement. Are you still there, chef? Domenico, voice cracking. I'm here. I'm just stunned. Thank you, signore. I don't know what to say. Franco. Congratulations, chef. Expect an official announcement soon. Buona giornata. The line went dead. Domenico stayed frozen, phone in hand. Serafina, Rocco, Giovanna, Camilla, Tommaso, and Lucia crowded around, eyes wide. Domenico, barely above a whisper. We got 2 Michelin stars. For a moment, the staff stared at him, absorbing the incomprehensible news. Then pandemonium erupted. Screams, laughter, tears, group hugs. Giovanna jumped up and down like a child. Rocco kissed Domenico's cheeks. Camilla covered her mouth in disbelief. Domenico's eyes welled, heart bursting with both joy and terror. If Michelin recognized them, the entire world would soon come knocking, and with it, more scrutiny than ever before. An immediate surge in popularity. Word spread faster than a brush fire in a dry summer. Even before the official announcement, rumors of Trattoria Sorpresa's Michelin triumph exploded across social media. Phone reservations skyrocketed. People lined up down the block, hoping to sample the Michelin-starred sausage and the world's finest spaghetti, as some sensationalist headlines proclaimed. The staff scrambled to accommodate the rush, extending hours, ordering more produce, perfecting each dish. Domenico had no time to process the news. He was too busy ensuring they could handle the onslaught. Each day ended in total exhaustion, the tip jar overflowing, the dining room bustling beyond capacity. Michelin's accolade, best Italian sausage in the country. The official Michelin guidebook was released the following Monday. Trattoria Sorpresa's entry lauded Domenico's pioneering spirit and exceptional attention to detail, praising the flavors and originality of every dish. The section that caused Domenico's jaw to drop read, "Particularly noteworthy is the robust Italian sausage in many of their dishes, which our inspectors ranked as the best in the country. Its lightness and complex seasoning set it apart from any other." The staff read that line in stunned glee and near hysterical laughter. The best sausage in the country was made of seitan. They had fooled Michelin inspectors multiple times, who unknowingly hailed Domenico's cruelty-free creation as the pinnacle of Italian salumi. Celebration with a side of irony. That night, Domenico closed the trattoria early for a private staff celebration. They gathered around a table with homemade vegan wine, secretly purchased from a local organic vineyard. Speeches were made, tears were shed, and the irony hung in the air like a comedic trophy. Rocco, raising his glass. To Domenico, he gave us a crazy dream, and now we have 2 Michelin stars. Best sausage in the country. Ha! Giovanna, wiping her tears. I wish Nonna could see this. She'd faint from shock, but maybe she'd taste the sausage and be proud. Who knows? Serafina. We never believed we'd come this far. Everyone said it was impossible to run a vegan place in Rome, but look at us now. They clinked glasses, a swirl of awe and giddiness in their hearts. Yet beneath the laughter was a shared understanding. The secret remained intact, and unbelievably, they had Michelin praising their vegan sausage as if it were prime pork. The world was a strange place indeed. A message from Senator Farnese. 2 days after the Michelin announcement, Domenico received a letter bearing the crest of the Farnese family. It read, "Chef Fontana, congratulations on your Michelin success. I find it remarkable that your local sausage supplier has earned you such acclaim. I have endeavored to locate this supposed farm, but so far in vain. I trust you will supply me with the contact details at your earliest convenience. Sincerely, Senator Amadeo Farnese." Domenico chuckled nervously upon reading it. Farnese hadn't forgotten. Now, with the restaurant's heightened status, he was even more determined to verify the authenticity. Domenico tucked the letter away, sighing, one crisis at a time. The press conference surprise. Journalists clamored for a statement from Domenico regarding his 2-star Michelin victory. Eventually, he agreed to hold a small press conference at the Trattoria. Cameras lined the dining area. Domenico, flanked by Serafina and Rocco, faced a barrage of questions. Reporter 1. Chef Fontana, how does it feel to earn 2 Michelin stars for a relatively modest trattoria? Domenico, I am deeply honored. We're a humble team with big dreams. Reporter 2. There have been rumors about your restaurant being secretly vegan. Care to address that? A hush fell. Domenico mustered his practiced response. Trattoria Sorpresa is about surprising flavors and celebrating Italian cuisine. If people find something unconventional, that's part of the fun. We've never labeled ourselves as anything but a trattoria serving good food. Reporter 2. But are you or aren't you vegan? Domenico offered a mysterious smile. Taste the food and decide for yourself. Some reporters laughed, some rolled their eyes. The volley of questions continued, but Domenico danced around the direct queries. He emphasized the fresh produce, the artisanal methods, the joy of experimentation. By the end, the press seemed divided, but the story that emerged was of an enigmatic chef who had possibly redefined Italian cuisine. A giddy, heartwarming revelation. Late that evening, after the reporters had left, Domenico was tidying up when he found an envelope under a plate. Inside was a handwritten note. Chef Domenico, I am a frequent diner, and I've long suspected your secret. My daughter and I are both vegan, yet each time we dine here, we feel safe and satisfied beyond measure. We suspect, but do not pry, because we know how fragile acceptance can be. Thank you for showing the world that kindness and tradition can coexist. You have our lifelong support. Grazie, from a grateful patron. Tears pricked Domenico's eyes. That was all the validation he needed. His efforts were not only feeding the masses delicious food, but quietly championing a kinder world, one where vegan cuisine could flourish, even in the stronghold of Italian culinary tradition. The unrevealed truth prevails. Days turned into weeks. The hype surrounding the Michelin stars remained intense. Lines snaked around the block, and Domenico kept serving dish after dish of plant-based illusions. Senatore Farnese's threats loomed, but with each day that passed, Domenico grew bolder in his quiet confidence. If they had fooled Michelin, they could handle Farnese. And so, the comedic charade continued. The staff giggled every time a customer raved about the sausage or the mozzarella. They winked at each other when people praised the rich, creamy cheese in the cannoli. And Domenico himself felt a growing sense of wonder that he could nudge the culinary world toward plant-based meals without ever announcing it. A final surprising twist. One sunny afternoon, a black car pulled up outside the trattoria. Out stepped Gilda Tarquinio, the feared food critic who had once cast suspicion on Domenico's ragù. She entered the empty dining room during the lull between lunch and dinner. Domenico approached with a polite smile, albeit a pounding heart. Gilda, smirking. 2 Michelin stars. Impressive, Chef Fontana. I see your success is unstoppable. Domenico. Signora Tarquinio, always a pleasure to see you. To what do I owe this visit? She tilted her head, eyeing him with that same penetrating gaze. I came to taste that sausage of yours one more time. After all, it's been declared the best in the country. Her tone carried a playful edge. Domenico sensed that she might still suspect the vegan secret. Nevertheless, he seated her graciously, and within minutes she was sampling the sausage-laden gnocchi dish that started this whole saga. Gilda, chewing slowly. Intriguing texture, more delicate than most sausages, yet undeniably satisfying. Chef, I must say, your illusions run deep. Domenico's pulse skipped. Illusions? Did she know? If so, would she blow his cover? But Gilda simply dabbed her lips with a napkin, leaving half the dish untouched. Gilda, I'll be writing a follow-up piece. Perhaps I'll share my theories about your techniques, or perhaps I'll simply praise your brilliance. The public loves a little mystery, don't you think? She rose, handing Domenico a business card. Should you ever wish to discuss your culinary philosophy in private, chef, feel free to contact me. Then she swept out, leaving Domenico trembling with a heady mix of excitement and dread. The happy, secret ending. Some revelations never came. Domenico never officially announced his restaurant as vegan. No uproar forced him to confess. The staff maintained the vow. In the end, the comedic lengths they went to preserve the illusion forged an unbreakable camaraderie. They had stared into the eyes of suspicious critics, health inspectors, aristocrats, and social media influencers, emerging with Michelin stars pinned to their door. As the weeks turned to months, Trattoria Sorpresa's fame grew. Tourists from around the globe arrived, lured by the legend of the surprising flavors. Locals boasted that Rome now harbored a gastronomic gem that rivaled any in Italy. Even Farnese never succeeded in unmasking the non-existent butcher, eventually giving up the quest for evidence. Through it all, Domenico remained the gracious, slightly anxious host, moustache twitching whenever someone asked about the origin of his sausage. The staff danced around the truth with comedic agility, gleaning quiet satisfaction each time a satisfied carnivore exclaimed, "That was the best Italian sausage of my life." And so, in a city where tradition was as deeply rooted as the centuries-old ruins, a quiet revolution took place under everyone's nose, all while the secret stayed locked behind the smiling facade of red and white checkered tablecloths and the name Trattoria Sorpresa. No grand confession overshadowed the final curtain call. Instead, the comedic saga ended on a triumphant, heartwarming note. Domenico, arms around his staff, raised a glass in a closing toast after a packed dinner service. The hush of the deserted dining room settled around them, and they savored a sweet, satisfying laughter that only they understood. Domenico, voice trembling with joy. We did it, and we're still doing it, and the world thinks we serve the best sausage in Italy. They laughed and laughed until tears formed, their secret safe, their mission somehow accomplished. Indeed, they had transformed Rome's culinary landscape without anyone ever discovering the truth. In the end, the greatest irony of all was that sometimes the best-kept secret can be hiding in plain sight.